So as I said, today the topic is habit changes. As a little recap, my name is Kenzie Osborne, and I am a registered health coach with the Health Coach Alliance. I'm also a natural nutrition clinical practitioner, and so a lot of the work that I do is working on habit changes, particularly from the nutrition standpoint, but also with health coaching from a lot of different standpoints as well. So if you would like to log in as usual, we're going to be using Menti. So if you'd like to log in, go for it. If not, or if you're unable to, you can also use the chat feature on Microsoft Teams as well. Okay, we'll get going. And if you need to log in at a later time, that banner at the top will always be there at the top for you to log on in. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about habits, of course. So we will be looking at what is a habit. We're going to look at something called the habit loop. And we'll look at those moving parts in order to understand what our habit loops are. And then we'll take that opportunity to break down some of our own habits as well. We're going to talk about how to successfully make positive habit changes and break those habits that are maybe not providing us with many benefits. And of course, we're going to give you some time to break down a habit that you may currently have that you would like to break or that you'd like to change. And we're going to overview how to make those successful habit changes. So not the short-term ones where we kind of try and change a habit for a few weeks and then go back to our old ways. We're going to really look at how to make those successful habit changes. At the end of this session, we're also going to be providing a couple of reading materials so that you can dive deeper into the world of habits if you'd like, both understanding habits and how they are created, and then also how to create your own habits. So it's quite an interesting process. It gets down to some psychological components as well, which I think is really interesting. All right, so when I say the word habit, what comes to mind? Any words that come to mind when I say habit? There may unconscious decision. Yeah, absolutely. So something that just happens without you consciously thinking about it. There can be positive, there can be negative ones, absolutely. So depending on that habit that is formed, sometimes they're just formed progressively and they may not be, providing us many benefits, or they may be negative. Or you may be intentionally implementing a habit that is designed specifically to have a positive result. A routine, yes, very similar. Habit and routine, typically they go hand in hand. So if you're trying to implement a habit, you're probably going to have a set routine in order to do that, like a series of events one after another in order to establish that habit, for sure. Awesome. So James Clear, he is a New York Times bestselling author, and his book is Atomic Habits. That is going to be one of the reading materials we suggest, and it is an amazing book. It has lots of really great information in there about how habits are formed and, again, how you can create your own. And he defines habits as the small decisions and actions that you repeatedly perform on a day-to-day basis. It shapes the person who you are, the things you believe, and the personality you portray. So if we really take a moment and dive deep into this definition of a habit, not only are our daily tasks considered to be habits, but the way we present ourselves to others. Maybe you're in the habit of using hand motions. That's me when I talk. Our personality traits may be habits as well. And the things that we spend time to learn and believe in are also considered a result of our daily habits. So to expand on that, how in shape or out of shape you are may be a result of your habits. How happy or how unhappy you are may also be considered a result of your habits under this definition. So when we begin to really understand what a habit is, we can start to break the components of a habit down into something to really understand why we do the things that we do, right? And when we do that, when we figure out why we do the things that we do, we can work towards creating better habits that can propel us in a direction that we really want to go. So if we can determine why do we do what we do now and where do I want to go, that's when we can start to make a habit change that actually makes sense. So why, in your opinion, do you think we should kind of take a pause and reflect on our habits? What are the benefits of that? Fosters growth? Yeah, absolutely. So when we take a minute to reflect on what we're doing now and where we want to be, that is a great initiator of growth and personal growth. Self-reflection is always important because it allows you to look at how you're doing things and what habits you have, and then any that you need to improve on. Yes. So a lot of habits can just occur, like I say, kind of progressively. So we may not even know that we're getting into a habit and then it's suddenly there. Okay, I'll go and get, I'll go and buy a coffee one day, and then next week you buy two, and then the next week you buy three, and suddenly you're in this habit of always going to buy a coffee in the morning. And we may just need to take a step back, reflect on that habit, and see, is this something that is really benefiting me? Is this something that is, a negative aspect or having some negative outcomes on my life? So really taking that time to reflect absolutely can foster that growth and can take just a minute to see, what am I doing and is it helping me get to where I want to go? So I want you to take a little bit of time right now, 1 or 2 minutes to yourself, and think about a habit that you may have right now that you would like to work towards changing. So if you have one habit, two habits, think of 1 or 2. If you have something to write them down, writing it down can be helpful. Otherwise, just take a minute or 2 to think about that. And if you would like to share them. If you would like to keep them to yourself, that's also okay. So I'll give you a minute or 2 to just think of those habits. Mine absolutely is the coffee one. That's a new one for me, going out and buying the coffee, which I think I need to work on changing. Ignoring devices. Yeah, so maybe we're in the habit of, as soon as it kind of goes off, we need to pay attention to it, or we're in the habit of always carrying our phone on us wherever we go. That's a great one. I find that one also is usually a progressive one. It starts with 1 email or 2 emails that you got to tend to, and then it just flows in as a habit that you're always kind of got your focus on that. Looking at work emails off hours, absolutely. Get into exercise again. So yeah, maybe a habit. And I would challenge you to think, if you're, get into exercise again, I would challenge you to think of, is there a habit that's inhibiting that? So for example, if you would like to exercise when you get home from work, are you in a habit where you get home from work and turn on the TV? Or if you like to exercise in the morning, are you in a habit where you shut your alarm off when it goes? So it goes at 6:30 and you're like, I'll snooze for a little bit. So is that the habit, right? So think, if your goal is to get into exercise again, what habit may be preventing you from doing that, right? Is there a habit there that is inhibiting your ability to go and exercise? Great answers. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to be talking about three major components of our habits, and this goes back to that James Clear in the Atomic Habits book. And so in his book, they discuss the three major components of habits, right? Keep this visual in mind as we go through each one, right? So this reminder, routine, and reward, this is what we call the habit loop. So human beings, we are creatures of habit and oftentimes are reluctant to make drastic changes as it places us outside of our comfort zone, right? It's outside of the norm for what we do. When we come to understand how habits are created and what fuels our habits, it makes it easier to make minor adjustments so that we don't get caught up in this vicious cycle of poor choices. So a couple examples here of, that reminder, routine, and reward. It can be reminder, I wake up. That's your reminder, you're awake. Your routine, maybe I make my bed. And the reward for that is you feel accomplished. So reminder, I wake up. Routine, I'm making my bed. That's the act of what I'm doing. Reward, I feel accomplished. Another example may be a reminder, I eat dinner. That's my trigger. That's my little reminder that is in my mind. The routine that I want to establish is go for a walk. So I want to go for a walk after dinner. And then the reward is I feel healthy. So my digestive system feels a little better. Mentally, I feel good. Physically, I feel good. So again, reminder, I'm eating dinner. That's the original action, the anchor item. The routine is I'm going for my walk, and the reward is I feel healthy, right? So keep these in mind as we go forward. All right, so when we're talking about the reminder, and I want you to think of this with the original habit that you had written down, the reminder could be a visual trigger. So it could be something, I don't know, I see a piece of clothing on my floor, so I'm going to go put it away, right? So it could be a visual trigger. It could be an emotional response. So this is something that I work with some of my clients on in terms of nutrition. So an emotional response, I feel anxious or sad. And sometimes the routine with that is to go and get food, right? So think of, it could be that emotional response that is triggering a particular routine that we have. It could be a verbal cue, so something someone says, even something that you may say to yourself or you say to another person, or a physical act that causes us to go through that loop, right? So a physical act may be I'm waking up, I'm eating dinner, I'm making my coffee, something like that that triggers that routine. And usually when I think of building a new habit, I like to establish something that is that physical act. I find that typically is a little bit easier to remember. So one that sometimes I will suggest will be when I brew my coffee, then I'm going to do some meditation. So the trigger, that reminder, is I'm brewing my coffee, and the routine is I'm doing my meditation. The reward is I feel more relaxed and more calm for the day, right? So again, that physical act I find to be a little bit more powerful in starting out a new habit. So there is one component here that is sort of tied in with reminder. It's not a specific part of the habit loop, but it is tied in with the reminder, and it's called craving. So this craving is the motivational force that is behind our habit, so behind that routine. Why do we do the things that we do? What motivates us to do specific things? So I want you to think of that desire, right? Especially if we are going, we're trying to change a habit, right? So for example, I get home and I turn on the TV and I sit down. I could go exercise, but I just go down, I just turn on the TV and sit down. There's got to be some sort of motivational force there. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. If there wasn't some sort of immediate reward or some sort of reward, we wouldn't do what we do. So that act of sitting down watching TV, maybe it helps us forget about the day. Maybe it just feels relaxing to kick the legs up because we've been walking for a while, right? So think about what that craving is, because that is tied to the reward, what you seek in terms of emotional response, satisfaction, comfort, etc. Right? So again, another example here may be that snooze alarm, right? So do you want to get your day started? Is that going to make you feel better in the long term? Or do you want to just stay in the warm bed and feel good right now? Right? So thinking of that, the end result is feeling good. We're either going to feel good because we started our day early, or we're going to feel good because we're sitting in a warm bed. But think about that desire and what's, tied to that negative routine. Again, it usually leads to a desire, and usually more of an immediate desire, right? Or an immediate reward. And then maybe what we want to do typically will lead to a reward, but it may not be immediate. It may be longer term. Okay. All right. So the next component is your routine. So the routine is that action that is taken once that reminder has been received. So the actual habit itself, right? So if we go back to that alarm sequence, one of two things that could happen when your alarm goes off. One, snooze, roll over, go back to bed. Two, get out of bed and make the bed and start your day, right? So just in the, I guess in the comments section, so far we've talked about that reminder and the routine. When we go back to the goals that you set, can you identify that reminder? So what triggers you to do what you do? And then that routine that you have right now. So what is that trigger, and then what is that routine that you have? Any ideas? Yeah, just in the chat. Put workout clothes on after work. Yeah. So that would be, yes. So that could be an action that you take. So in that case, the reminder may be opening your closet. The routine is putting your workout clothes on and going to, wherever you go to do your workout, either at home or someplace else. So the reminder there would be opening your closet. So instead of doing the routine of putting your comfy clothes on, you would put your workout clothes on. Wake up on time, right? So the reminder there would be waking up, that alarm that goes off, and then the routine that you would want to start would be getting up after that. So instead of hitting that snooze button. Awesome. Okay. So as I said before, routine, this is the action that's taken. It's the habit. It's what you do. And this is required in order to get that reward. So now let's talk a bit about the reward. So the reward represents the feelings of comfort, satisfaction, happiness, fulfillment that you may feel after going through your routine. It's usually an emotional attachment to that routine, right? So in this particular example, the bed one that we've been using, your reward is getting out of bed and getting your day started. Or if you're on the other side of this loop, your reward is having those few extra minutes of sleep. And like I said, typically, if it's a negative reward, now this is not true in all circumstances, but typically that negative reward that negative habit is associated with more of an immediate reward, which is why we like that more. Whereas what we really want to do, it's more of a longer term reward. So we don't get that immediate feeling. We got to wait a little bit, right? You may not feel the reward of getting out of bed early until an hour or two after, when you're like, wow, I was productive this morning. This is awesome, right? Whereas if you immediately go back to bed, that's an immediate reward of getting to lay down in your cozy bed and all warm and nice, right? So when we begin to recognize our reminders and the routines, we can quickly begin to recognize where we can make some positive changes within our habit loops. And this is one way to make a positive and lasting habit change. So when we make this habit change, we really want to try and make that reward of the positive habit extra clear. So reminding yourself, when you wake up, my reward is I'm going to be productive this morning. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to start my day. It's going to be awesome. Having that as your reward, right? Or even recognizing, by waking up early, I can have a really tasty breakfast that I like that makes me feel good. And so that's a reward. Really focusing on the reward of the positive habit that you want to instill, right? So take a minute to type out, and I'm just going to see if we have one here. Okay, so take a few minutes to write down either on your sheet or just in the chat. So write down the reminder, the cue, and the reward of one of the habits that you listed on your worksheet. So this is going to be the habit that you want to change. So for example, the reminder may be I wake up, so the alarm goes off, that's your reminder cue. The habit that I have is I press snooze, and the reward is that I feel super awesome just laying down and feeling warm and cozy. So think about that reminder, routine, reward. What does that look like for you? Reminder is open the house door, feeling good to work out. Cue, put on clothes and get good music. Okay, so the workout clothes and get good music, that would be almost a part of your routine. So the reminder is that you're opening the door, you're coming home from work. That's your reminder. And then the routine that would start would be, so this would be the positive one, right? This is the positive habit that we're wanting to change. So the cue is to put on the workout clothes and get good music. That is a part of the routine and going to the gym. And then the reward is you're starting to feel better, look a bit more toned, lose some weight, so achieve your health related goals. And again, that's more of a long-term reward. So my question to you is, what is the current routine that you have? So this is the routine that or the habit that you're wanting to instill. What is the current habit that you have? So the reminder, you open the door to the house, you're jazzed to work out. So what happens after you open the door? You're jazzed to work out. Do you go put comfy clothes on? Do you go sit down somewhere? What do you do after you open your door? Comfy clothes. So that is the current routine that you have, right? So your current habit is I open the door and I put comfy clothes on. That's the current habit. The one that you want to change, and it's really interesting here because the change is the clothes, right? And I'm going to tell you a really interesting story after this in just a second, is actually the clothes. So that you open the door and you put your workout clothes on, that starts the routine of I am going to now work out, right? Now, a really interesting point, and I believe it's also from the Atomic Habits, but I've read a couple books, so I'm not 100% sure it's from this one. I think it is, though. And it's the idea of the first 2 minutes of a habit is the hardest. And it's usually the first 2 minutes of that routine is the hardest, and then you can start to build that. And I encourage my clients to think of that when they're making a change, right? So in this example, this is a great example. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to put the workout clothes on and walk out the door. You could, I mean, no one's stopping you from turning back around and walking back in the door, but the likelihood of you doing that is pretty slim, right? You have a much higher likelihood of getting your workout clothes on and walking out the door and actually going than turning around and coming back. Think of that also with going for a walk, right? So I put my shoes on and I walk out the door. And I tell my clients when they're setting these goals, you have achieved your goal once you walk out the door. If you come back and walk on in, that is what it is. You have achieved that first 2 minutes. That is the hardest part. Same goes for if you're making your dinner, right? I'm going to take the ingredients out of my fridge and put it onto the counter. Again, you could just take all those ingredients and pop them back in the fridge, but the likelihood is that at that point you're going to start to make dinner. So think of those first 2 minutes because it generally is the hardest. And that this is a really great example, which is getting those gym clothes on. Usually that is the hardest. And then from there, the routine can start of now I'm going at my door, now I'm going to the gym, now I'm here, now I'm going to work out, now I'll go home, right? So think of those first 2 minutes. Awesome. Okay. So we're going to talk about changing and creating those new habit loops. So start with the why. And this is, as I said earlier, right? Think of that reward and remind yourself of that reward. So why do you want to make this change? What reward are you seeking and why are you doing it? So in this example, it was, to feel better, to look more toned, to achieve your health goals, right? So really remind yourself of that reward and find a substitute routine that leads to that reward. So again, the negative, putting the comfy clothes on and sitting on the couch, that's giving you immediate satisfaction by just relaxing and feeling good that you're just able to kick back and relax for the night. You would also feel good, and you would probably feel better over a long period of time going to the gym and then coming back and relaxing. Right? So think of how can I get to that reward or even a greater reward with a more supportive routine. Okay. So find a substitute routine, evaluate reward, right? So really make sure that when you are, getting that reward, you are recognizing it and you are verbally or just, a voice inside of your head acknowledging that you've had that reward, right? And do this in a small, when you are making these changes, do them in a small, consecutive manner. So don't try to change too many things at once, right? Try to start with those individual goals. So maybe your first goal is just when I get home, I'm putting my workout clothes on. Do that for 7 days. Then the next goal, when I get home, I'm putting my workout clothes on and I'm walking out the door. The next goal, workout clothes, getting out the door, driving to the gym. Next goal, and so on and so forth. And you're rewarding yourself for each of those small changes that you are making, right? Eliminate reminders and triggers. So we will eventually get back to having those triggers, and this is only applicable in certain situations. But if it does help, we can try and eliminate those triggers at the beginning. So the best example of that is if your trigger is to look at emails after work, if that's kind of the routine that you're trying to stop, you may want to temporarily remove the trigger of having your computer in front of you. So you may need to actually physically remove that computer from you. In the case of going to the gym, it's not necessarily the same. You can't eliminate the trigger of walking through your door. But in some cases, like I say, you're answering your phone a lot, or you're looking at your emails a lot. You may need to, at the beginning, eliminate the trigger. So completely put your computer away, completely put your phone away, turn it off. Right? So think if that needs to happen for you at the beginning, and then later on in your stage, when you've gotten comfortable with, not responding to those emails or not doing that, looking at the phone, then that could be, one strategy for you. What about taking workout clothing to work so you don't even have to go home? Yeah, so that would be, I didn't think of that myself, but that would be a perfect way to apply this. So if that trigger is I get home, I see my home, I see my bed, it looks super comfy, then yes, exactly. Maybe the thing to do in that case is to not go home at all. So to eliminate that. Okay, well, if the bike's in your basement, then I guess you gotta go home. So again, it depends on the situation that you're in, but that's the right process, the right thought process, right? So if you do get in and you have that, I mean, even could you put the clothes like right at the front of your door so that the moment that you walk in, you see your workout clothes, they're planned, they're ready to go, right? Bring the bike to work. Could you imagine? That's one way to do it, I guess. But yeah, so eliminating those other possible triggers. Again, maybe if you go home, you go to bed, you see the bed, that's where your closet is, and then you get comfy and you just want to lay down. Maybe bringing those clothes out and putting it in front of your door, your front door, would be one way to eliminate that trigger, right? So thinking of that. All right. So another example here, and so we've done this, we've talked about this one a couple times today, but have an example, so similar to checking your emails, stop scrolling social media during the workday. So your reminder or your cue, you may find yourself doing this if you're getting stuck on a work project, you're doing something that isn't as engaging, you're doing administrative work that isn't the most enjoyable. That may be your reminder or cue. The routine is that you pull out your phone and you check social media. And the reward is that you reduce stress, you feel relief from distraction, you're now engaged, there's something interesting to look at, right? So what would be a substitute routine that we could implement here? So using this example, what's a substitute routine? So you get stuck on a work project, that's what happens. And the reward, you want to reduce stress and you want to feel relief from distraction. What is something different that would be more beneficial that you could do here? Go for a walk to refresh your brain? Absolutely. Yeah. So take a minute to kind of free yourself and go for that walk. Absolutely. Any other ideas? Depending on the task, if it's a task that you find difficult, maybe finding or speaking to a friend that may be able to help you may kind of help that situation. If it's something that's more challenging, not really as tedious. If it's something tedious, I absolutely think going for a walk would be awesome. Good. Eat something brain healthy. Eat your avocados, nuts, and seeds. Yes. Or have, if you find that you are stuck on a project for, 3 to 4 hours and you're just feeling overwhelmed, and that's when you kind of take a break, just go on social media and get lost there, going for a snack could actually be like a nutrient dense snack, could be something that would be helpful for sure. Absolutely. Okay. So we're going to go over a couple of strategies to make a successful habit change. So the first one is start small and be consistent. So it's that simple. So Implement a small tweak to your routine and practice the same habit consistently over a prolonged period of time, right? Consistency is key, and that's what's really going to help you make successful and long-lasting habit changes. In the new year, I find we all start to just do these drastic habit changes. We completely scrap what we're eating and eat brand new things. We completely just go all in at the gym, 60 minutes, 45 minutes, 5 times a week, and it doesn't last. And the reason why it doesn't last is it's such a dramatic change. So start small. Like I say, really focus on those first 2 minutes, or do something that's ever so small in terms of a habit change. So if we're looking at nutrition here, I wake up, I grab my bowl of Fruit Loops cereal. Maybe start by making that change of, instead of having it over milk, have it over Greek yogurt, add some more protein, and that's your first step. The second step may be taking some of the Fruit Loops out and putting in some fresh fruit instead, right? So having the fresh fruit, your cereal, and on top of the Greek yogurt. So those small changes are going to be a lot more sustainable than completely omitting your Fruit Loops and cereal and having an egg white and spinach scramble with a side of turkey bacon, right? So that is going to be a lot harder to sustain because it's such a drastic change or dramatic change, right? Try to choose those small changes and be consistent with it. Strategy number 2 is the accountability buddy. So this is a great way to keep your new created habits alive. So your accountability buddy, when you are choosing one, choose them wisely. They have to have 3 main criteria that we suggest. So number 1 is someone that you trust, of course, and who will call you out. So if you're not working towards your habit, they're going to say, hey, Kenzie, are you okay? I've noticed you haven't been doing this. This is one of your goals. That's really what you want in an accountability buddy. Someone who isn't afraid of being called out. So, right, this accountability buddy, it does go both ways. So making sure that you're both holding each other accountable to the goals that you want, of course, in a positive way. So being more inquisitive or curious, saying, I've noticed this. Is there a reason why we're not doing this habit? That can be a positive aspect of your accountability buddy. And someone who has the same mindset about making a change. They don't have to be having the same habit change as you, but just somebody that is equally as passionate or as motivated about making that change, right? So that can make, help ensure that your habits are going to be successful because you have somebody who's looking out for you. You have somebody who is equally as passionate about their own habit, and you can both tag team off each other to make sure that you are achieving your goals, right? Okay. Strategy 3, visualization. So visualization is a practice that a lot of, elite level athletes, CEOs, leaders, etc. have in their day-to-day. Take a moment to just pause and visualize yourself in the situation that you hope you are going to be in 3 months down the road. So if I make this habit, I'm going to the gym, I've implemented a movement routine and I'm doing it consistently. 3 months from now, I feel better. My health metrics are improved. I have more energy. Really take the time to pause and visualize that, right? And when you visualize things, you should be trying your best to think of this. So how do things look? How do they smell? How do they sound? How do they feel? What kind of behaviors are you now engaged in? What are you wearing? What kind of facial expressions do you have? Get really detailed with it, because when you get more of a clear vision of where this new habit is going to lead you to, that can provide you with more motivation and a better, clear idea of where do you want to be in 3 months, and how is this particular habit that you are implementing today going to help you be there. The next strategy is using the word but. So we sometimes can fall into a trap of negative thoughts, right? Like, I missed my walk today, or I didn't do my workout today, or I ate this, giant tub of ice cream tonight, right? And that can be a slew of negative thoughts that come into our mind. If you notice that you're getting that thought, either say but or and. You can say either. Honestly, I prefer saying and because I find it a bit more positive, but you could also say but as well. It does the same thing, right? So a couple examples here. I missed my walk today, but I will go for a 30-minute walk at 12 p.m. tomorrow. Be specific in how you are going to make a change tomorrow to work towards your goal. You could also say and. So I didn't work out today, and I'm going to get up early tomorrow to do my workout, right? I ate a tub of ice cream today, but I am going to, wake up and make a great breakfast tomorrow. So catching yourself in those negative thoughts, acknowledging that it's okay. We are all going to make mistakes or have days sometimes, especially when we're changing habits. It's very difficult to do. So acknowledging that and making a plan for the next day. All right, so as we get to I forgot to talk about the habit tracker, sorry. So the word but, and then also habit logging or habit tracker. So a lot of us respond positively when we see some sort of visual representation of our progress. This is actually why, visual things that are tangible that you can actually hold on to are more easier for us to remember than things that are digital, not tangible, or we can't see. This is why flyers and business cards are still used, because when you actually have that tangible thing, it is logged more in our memory. So having some sort of visual, tangible habit tracker or log is really nice to have, right? Typically, they have 30 days on it, but you could do a year, you could do a week tracker, whatever time period you find works best for you. And every day you successfully fulfill that habit change, whichever one you're working on, whatever stage you're at, you either put a check mark, you can put a sticker, you can stamp it, whatever you want to mark that you have done that. At the end of the month, week, year, whatever, you can see how many times you actually fulfilled your habit change instead of guessing, and then challenge yourself to do even better the next week, the next month, the next year. Right? So maybe if you're using a month, you see that you fulfilled your habit 18 times out of 30. That's awesome, right? Next month, could you do it 22 times? Could you do it 24 times? So trying to make it a bit of a game with yourself as to, can I beat myself for what I did last month? Can I beat myself this month, right? They're a great way to ensure that you've stayed on track. I can't even remember, most of us can't even remember what we had for dinner 3 nights ago or 2 nights ago. So when we track it, we can actually see how many times did I really do it this month, rather than just taking a wild guess, which could be completely inaccurate, right? So using metrics, tracking can be really helpful. Okay. So a couple of reading materials and helpful resources. So Atomic Habit by James Clear, okay? And The Power of Habit as well is another really great, those are just 2 great books. They dive deeper into the world of habits, a little bit more from the psychology component as well, so that it can provide a bit more detailed information for you when you are making your habits. Switch. This is another really great book on how to make not only individual changes, but changes at an organizational and even larger scale. So understand how you can make those successful changes by addressing our elephants, which is what it's called, our emotions, our riders, which is our decision-making components of our brain, and shaping the path, so the path that we want to make in the change. So switch, it's individual changes and organizational or larger scale changes. And then atomic habits and the power of habits are mostly just about creating and the formation of habits in general. So those books are really awesome, and I suggest that you check them out, especially if you have some holiday reading to do. This is a great place to start. All right, so what was your top takeaway from today's workshop? Any takeaways? That the 2 minutes are the hardest. Yes, absolutely. Which is pretty cool to think about, because I find it also takes away the intimidating factors that come in with building a habit, right? If your habit or your goal that you want to establish is, I want to take a 30-minute walk every day, that can be extremely intimidating. And it can be discouraging if we're not able to do that. So just saying, I want to put my shoes on and walk out the door, that can be a lot more manageable, a lot more positive, and still get you in that direction. A couple of other takeaways here. It takes effort to make a change. Absolutely. Yes. So it does take a large effort. We're creatures of habit. We like habit. We like things staying the same. So when we do make a change, it can be hard. Starting small versus the dramatic habit change. Yes. So those small little things are going to be more sustainable than just making that dramatic new change that can cause a lot of kind of stress on our other aspects of our life as well. I've heard it takes 21 days to form a new habit. I think there's different days that are listed in different books you read. The most common I've heard is 30 to 60 days to build a new habit. Could be 21 days too. I also think it depends on how that habit impacts your life as well. So, if your habit that you want to establish is, I want to go to the gym for 30 minutes, well, that can make a pretty big change on your life, because, you now have to make the time, you have to drive there, you have to do the workout, so you have to have a plan as to what that workout is, and then you have to come home. So there's a lot of components. Whereas if your habit is simply, I want to swap my Fruit Loops for a Greek yogurt parfait, that may be a little bit easier in terms of making that a new habit. So I think in terms of the day amount, it really depends on how big the new habit is that you want to form. Yeah. All right. So in terms of other areas of wellness that you'd like to learn more about, is there anything that stands out? Probably not summer wellness right now, but who knows? Hydration, deep health, the benefits of activity, any something different. If you have something different that you'd like to learn about, then type that in the comments as well. Hydration, nice. I feel like there's a lot of myths around hydration as well. So that's a good one to have. Okay, if there are any other topics that you would be interested in learning about, please let us know. We'd be happy to be able to provide some insights on those topics. All right, so thank you for taking the time to attend this workshop today, or watch this workshop if you're watching back the recording. You can follow us on different social media accounts. Instagram and LinkedIn are the ones that we are most active on. We do have partnerships with True Local, which is a great meat delivery service, as well as iMag, which is a magnesium supplement store, and Fit It Out, which is high quality gym equipment, especially if we're getting into the new year and you're wanting to make some habit changes with your exercise, then that may be a great place to start with that gym equipment at home. All right. Thank you, everybody, for attending today.